let's talk about some power-packed habits that make you a high-performing student. Okay, I want you guys to know that if you're out there and you're studying right now and you're looking at all the other students that are doing well and you're like, why can't I do as well as them? But I'm spending just as much time in the library as them and I'm going to all the classes that they're going to. I can tell you, it's not about the time. It's about the habits that they have, that their efforts done day in and day out are compounding, okay? If you're new to my channel, I'm Josh. I'm a former doctorate of physical therapy student. For multiple years of my life, I was fully immersed in the academic world where I learned how to take tests, how to get through challenging semesters and overcome, you know, setbacks and not burn out, how to prioritize, and things along that nature. And so now I'm an academic coach. I teach this kind of stuff to people all across the world, how to learn information, how to study, how to prepare for tests, and I coach that kind of stuff. So if you like that kind of stuff, before I get into today's video, make sure you hit the subscribe button for me. And also, I got a newsletter where I send out this kind of stuff in short emails a few times a month right to your inbox for free. Okay, now let's get into the video. So, this is what students do. This is just a few of the things that high-performing students do, okay? I'm not going to go into extreme depth on all of them, but I'm just going to give you a few bullet points to really help you out if you are trying to be a high-performing student this semester and you don't know what it is that you need to change. Before I get into it, I will say if you actually want to get something out of this video and to see results on your tests going forward, pause this video, get a pen and a paper, and take some notes, okay? So, what is it that high-performing students do that's different than the rest? Okay, for one, they use study methods that are proven to work. There are certain ways to go about learning that we know from studies are most effective at helping you achieve the results that you want, okay? We know things like active recall, spaced repetition, and learning techniques like the Feynman technique are three methods that we know work very, very, very well to help you learn. Okay, I know it feels productive to read your notes again, to flip through the textbook again, to watch the PowerPoint slides flip across your screen again, or to watch videos or listen to lectures and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that that stuff is not important, but what I am saying is that we know from research that there are methods of learning information that are absolutely more powerful and more effective than others, okay? Active recall, spaced repetition, Feynman technique, those are just three. Okay, there's more, but those ones are absolutely the best. I'll break it down really quick what those are. So active recall is basically your ability to just pull information from memory. That's all it is. It's basically, note cards are a form of it. So if you have a note card that asks you to list off, I don't know, I can't even think of something right now. You have a note card and it's asking you a question, your ability to access that question from memory tells you if you have, or that process of trying to recall it, that is active recall. And that right there is a fantastic way to learn and study information. Done over time, consistently, that's spaced repetition. So the repetition part is doing it consistently. You look at that same note card multiple times, not 20 times in one day, but you look at that same note card once today, once tomorrow, or maybe 3 times today, 3 times tomorrow. Then you wait a couple days, you do it again a few times, you do it again 7 days later. You do it multiple times over time. And then the Feynman technique is essentially where if you are trying to understand something so well that you can explain it to people. You can explain it to people. So if you know it well enough to explain it and in simple terms from memory, you really got it down. Okay? And that is the technique there. You want to be able to learn content well enough so that you can share it and teach it. And other people, you don't have to teach it to real people. You can just do it to an imaginary audience or to your shower head or your steering wheel or whatever. But that is the Feynman technique. And that's also a very, very, very good way for you to go about studying and learning information in an effective manner. All right. So that was number one. It was using study methods that are proven to work. Number two, you want to amplify your learning and your studying by studying in blocks and eliminating distractions or minimizing them as much as possible. We know from the studies that studying in huge quantities is not effective. You sit down in the library, which you see all the time. You sit down in the library and you see people studying for like 4, 5, 6 hours straight, not even getting up. They're not really learning that much. They're not getting much out of it. They're just spending all that time in there, okay? We know that the best ways to study are to sit down for a block of period where you are focused on what's in front of you and you are trying to absorb that and you are limiting distractions during that time because the distractions kill the learning. And the biggest thing I got to say about this for you guys today is the phones, and we all know this. But if you're going to study, turn your phone off, put it on airplane mode for 25 minutes, for 45 minutes, however long you're studying for in your blocks. Okay, so let me get back to the block thing really quick. So studying in blocks is basically where you are going to pick a amount of time. I believe the sweet time frame is about 45 to 55 minutes, they say, is kind of how much you can study in a focused block of time to where your brain then needs a break. It's kind of like a sponge where you can only soak up so much information at once, and then you need to be able to take a break and do something else for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then come back and study again. And I know it sounds like kind of counterintuitive to like sit down and not study for 3 hours straight, so you're actually studying less time because you're taking the breaks, but you'll get more out of it. You'll get more out of it if you can do that. So study in blocks, study in blocks. I recommend 45 minutes. It seems like a sweet spot for me. 45, 15. So you study for 45 minutes and then you take a break for 15 minutes. And I just want to add this really quick. For your break, don't just scroll on your phone. Get up and move. Walk around. Get outside. Get some fresh air. Do something different. Watch a little funny video on your TV or something. Don't sit on your phone. Okay, enough of that. So, what works for you is the most important thing with the study block thing. Maybe you can study for 75 minutes and still feel like you're being really productive, and then you take a little bit longer break. You got to find what works for you. But with this method, you got to combine the no distractions thing because we know from studies that studying in a block of time where you have a bunch of distractions, you have notifications on your phone, you're multitasking, you got people walking by, you hear chatter in the background, that kills deep retention and understanding. So if you really, 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 really want to understand this stuff that you're trying to learn, I recommend going somewhere where you're going to be not disturbed. Okay, going to the highest floor of your library or into an individual study room or at your desk at home. Okay, not where you got people walking around, you got conversations going on. Try to, they say that, if you can study solo, sometimes you got to study in groups, I get it, but try to have some study sessions that are solo where you're by yourself because that is really where you're going to dial in and learn and you're going to have distractions cut out. So, in a nutshell, study in blocks and make it non-negotiable to not have your phone on during that block. Put it on airplane mode. Close the tabs on your computer, clear your desk, and focus on what's right in front of you. This is the habits that high-performing students have. This is what's going to allow you to get the grades that you want and to perform really well on tests so that when you walk into the classroom to take the test, you know what the heck you're talking about. You understand this stuff. You could probably get up in front of the class and teach it, you know it so well. All right, last thing I want to add with that is make it non-negotiable also to take your breaks. When it's break time, take the break. Don't just be like, I think I can study for another 20 minutes. No, get up and take the break. We know from studies, this is what works. If you want to be a high performer, take your breaks when they're scheduled, okay? If you think you need a longer break, take a longer break. Find what works for you. Also, use an alarm. It really helps, especially when you're first starting to establish this habit. If you want to study for 50 minutes, then set an alarm from 50 minutes from when you sit down to when the alarm goes off, and then you're going to get up and you're going to take a break from the books. All right, enough on that. I'm going to move on. Habit number 2 was study in blocks with minimal amounts of distractions. Okay, so use methods that work to be a high-performing student and study in blocks without distractions around you. You do those 2 things alone right there, you're already going to be ahead of most of the people in your class and you're going to outperform students. Well, let's get on to number 3. because I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate against this one. Handwritten notes. That's right. I know you can type faster on your computer. I know it's faster. I know. I hear all the things. You can't keep up with what the professor's saying. That's the whole point. When you handwrite your notes, we know from studies that it offers a unique advantage in the academic world because it forces you, of course, to pay attention, but you have to paraphrase what you're hearing, pick out the important stuff, and write a note on that. Okay? It forces you to process the information differently than typing. It leads to a higher level of brain activity when you're writing stuff down versus typing, and it's a different part of the brain that's being activated. When you have to physically hear something and then you have to take a note on it definitely will show in the amount of information that you retain. In this lecture right now, if you listened to me earlier on and you pause the video and you got a pen and paper and you're taking notes on my lecture to you right now, you could crumple up that sheet of paper and throw it away, and I bet you'd retain something that I taught you, because that's the power of handwriting notes, okay? Handwritten notes are very powerful. They lead to stronger retention. They lead to better understanding, deeper understanding, and they force you to paraphrase and process information differently than would be with a computer. So we know that. We know that from studies, okay? It shapes how you think when you have to do that, when you have to handwrite notes. I guess the best way to put it to you guys is when you handwrite notes, it makes it sticky. Okay, the information becomes very sticky. It sticks to your brain. If there was a sentence that you needed to memorize, if you typed it 10 times, or if you said it 10 times, or if you wrote that sentence on a whiteboard or a sheet of paper 10 times, which method do you think would work the best? I already know the answer to that one. All right. When you take your notes, here's a couple of tips for you. You don't want to try to write everything. That's not the goal. You want to just try to pick out the important stuff, paraphrase it, and get that written down. And a tip with that is, I know sometimes during school it's easy to miss something that the professor says. You can make a note of what slide they're on or what topic they're talking about, and you can always go learn about that on your own later and make your own note on that. And you can also, of course, ask the professor just to repeat themselves. But that's a tip for you that I use a lot. It's like when I was in class, if I missed something and I didn't feel like asking the professor to repeat himself, I would just say, okay, he was talking about this, and right now we're on slide number 46. I'll go back to slide 46 after class, and I'll learn about this a little bit, a few minutes on my own, okay? That drives deeper understanding of material. It's going to help you to excel academically. When you're taking your notes, paraphrase, 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 paraphrase. It's the whole notion of forcing what you're hearing to be into different contexts, different words, and then you write it down. That is the most important part of writing your notes. And if you can, at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of the lecture, try to just take everything that you learn and summarize it into a few sentences. It's a very powerful technique to basically pick out the most important things from the lecture and you put them into your own words in a quick description, okay? It's a small habit, but it does go a long way. All right, now let's get into habit number 4. Habit number 4 is something that I'm not going to touch on very long, because if you do the first 3 things that I just talked about, I can guarantee you that the results are going to speak for themselves. You're going to be able to walk into tests confidently. You know what you're talking about. You're going to be able to retain the information. You're going to understand it. You're going to be able to recall on it quickly and easily. Use the methods that work. Study in blocks and space out how you are studying, and eliminate the distractions and handwrite notes, paraphrase, that kind of stuff. Right there, that's the bread and butter of becoming an outstanding academic student and performing at an elite level. You're going to outperform the rest of your classmates. You're going to understand stuff better. You're going to retain it better. And when it comes to test time, you're going to be able to access that information and really know it. All right, number 4 is prioritize sleep. We know from studies that this is when the information that you're learning, just like learning this information right now, is then transferred from short-term memory, where you hang on to it for a few hours to a few days, to the long-term memory. That's when the save button happens, where files are saved. So if you don't get enough sleep, I think it's REM sleep, I can't remember, but when you don't get enough sleep, you cannot retain information long term. That's why they say don't pull all-nighters, because you might be able to hang on to the information enough to pass a test, but a week later you're not going to remember hardly anything that you just spent all that time and effort studying. So again, it's worth reiterating that no sleep is basically no save button. So it's when the short-term stuff goes to the long-term stuff. It's when you are basically filing away the stuff that you learned. So make sure you're prioritizing that, okay? Have a strict bedtime window where you're in bed by a certain time every night. You want to be a good student, you want to be academically performing at your best, this is a habit you want to develop. Okay, so in summary, do those 4 things. Study the right way, use the right techniques that work. Prioritize sleep, handwrite notes, and I can't even remember what the other concept that I just talked to you guys about was. Study, amplify your learning by studying in blocks and cutting out distractions while you're doing it. Those 2 things in combination with using the right techniques to study, handwriting your notes and reviewing them, and getting enough sleep, that's going to carry you a very, very long ways in your semester and in your ability to perform at your best academically. All right. I want to say this really quick. If you understood this stuff, that's great. You got to apply it or you're not going to get any results from it, okay, you guys? If you clicked on this video, you're probably struggling academically. So try, and if you can't do all of these things, pick 1 or 2 things that you're going to do this week and write a note in your planner that I'm going to do this, okay? And when you do that, you're going to see the results. If you like this video, I've got a free newsletter where I send this kind of stuff out right to your inbox a couple of times a month for free. I think I already said free, but if I didn't, it's free. Okay? I send out newsletters 2 times a month, giving academic tips and advice from somebody who's been there. And I also encourage you to subscribe, help support my channel so I can keep making content like this for you guys. In the meantime, I wish you guys the best of luck, and you got this.